Ever wonder why some people thrive under pressure while others break? It's not luck, it's science. Welcome to the Mind Performance Podcast. I'm Lindsay Paoli, a therapist and a mental performance strategist. Each episode, you'll get expert insights, real stories from high performers, and small shifts that lead to big results, so you can be better at what matters. Let's dive in. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mind Performance Pod. I am bringing my first guest today, and I'm so excited for you to meet him. Mathew Bowyer is an entrepreneur, author, and storyteller whose life journey has been anything but ordinary. From building one of the largest underground sports betting operations in the United States, handling billions in wagers, to facing federal indictment, an FBI raid, and a looming prison sentence, Mathew's story is a raw, unfiltered look at risk, resilience, and redemption. Now, as the author of Recalibrate, Mathew is turning his past into purpose, sharing lessons on mindset, addiction, business, and the true meaning of freedom. His perspective blends the high-stakes world of gambling with the grounded reality of fatherhood, family, and second chances. Welcome to the pod, Mathew. I can't even call you Mathew.
You can call me anything you want. We have a relationship. We've been friends for many years. So.
Yep, exactly. To me, you're Matt Bowyer. We have been to the Bahamas together. We were invited to one another's weddings. Tell me a little bit about our relationship from your perspective.
Well, first of all, I'll start it with your husband since that's where we met. But you guys are just a great couple. I enjoyed watching your, let's call it, beginning to where you are today, because I was there for when he first was pursuing you and you were working in the industry. And all the hosts I had, because that's how I met him, we just really hit it off. He's very similar, like alpha male, very similar to me. And so Tony and I had a great relationship, which led to our relationship, which, we spent a lot of time together, right? I mean, the trips, etc. So it was great to meet you guys. And I'm really grateful for our friendship today.
Likewise. And I wanted to ask, because I knew that was going to be your answer. Obviously, Tony was your casino host in the past, but I didn't think that you would remember. I originally met you at 21 years old. I was a pool waitress at the Mirage and was friends with Rachel, who invited me to the Mirage Villa. And this was all mentioned in Recalibrate. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to tell him, because I don't think that he'll remember that it was my first time in a Mirage Villa. I was, like I said, 21. I had been working at the front desk for a few years before transferring at 21 to cocktail.
Okay.
And snuck into the villa. I'm very much like against breaking the rules, and we were not supposed to be talking to guests, and we snuck in the villa, and you and Rachel ended up having a full relationship and getting married and having kids. And so then when I met you again 10 years later, it's such a testament, I think, to how big of a name in Las Vegas you really are and how big your story truly is.
Yeah, it's taken on a bigger story than I ever anticipated, of course. Even when I got in trouble, the Shohei Ohtani thing wasn't even out, and we'll get to that later. But the truth is, you would know, you were just in Las Vegas, just moved from there. But my name, it's a very interesting conversation. I have a lot of people. I'm like, what is my name now in Las Vegas? Because to some people, it's very taboo, right? As far as I'm the guy who somehow am being associated with taking down Las Vegas in a sense of the gambling high-end whale revenue of the gray area market, I call it, because my name is associated with the KYC rule, the Know Your Customer rule, that wasn't being implemented throughout Las Vegas, right? But back to your original comment, I did not know that I even recall meeting you at 21, so I apologize.
No.
But I was then a bachelor and definitely was using a lot of my resources as far as high-end rooms and villas and whatever I could to get beautiful women like you and others back to my villa. And in fact, a lot of the girls at Mirage I was dating that was working there, Rachel being one of them. So, and we now have a 14-year-old daughter together. And the truth is that those villas were my favorite villas out of all of Las Vegas.
Me too.
They're beautiful, and they still are. And I know that they're revamping them, but some great times and some great memories. And I didn't know that. So I'm really glad you shared that with me.
Yeah. Also, in your book, you mentioned a little bit of beef with Scott Sabella, which every female that has worked in hospitality in Las Vegas is very familiar with Scott Sabella. So I'm curious, I think that my audience would be interested. Have you guys made up? Or I know he's also facing his own challenges right now.
Yes. Yeah, he is definitely. And he actually, when I went to Resorts World and started going there, he came into my private gaming room and, came over and shook my hand and said hi. Truth be told, my beef with him was more towards Ron Elwood, who was the one that was hitting on Rachel when I went to the restroom at nightclub one night, which I thought was so disrespectful. But, that being said, I was drunk and things escalated very quickly. And I'm an alpha male that defends my world, so to speak. So when I got a little aggressive and then I ended up swinging and missing and all kinds of things were happening that night, it was a very interesting, chaotic moment at the Mirage. And then I got kicked out, and I was a very high-end gambler there. So they were in a rock and a hard place. But when you start swinging at someone and throwing them into a restaurant, they kind of have to make action. So Scott Zabella had to handle that since he was the president. And they had an interesting dynamic because at that time, they were very aggressive towards hospitality women who worked there, which I think you're aware of. And that was exactly what occurred. And because they worked there, so a lot of people who worked there, this had like pressure, like, how do I tell these guys no, but at the same time I don't want to be fired. And so that was occurring, as you know, quite a bit. And when I went to their office with Doug Seidenberg and Scott Sabella and Rachel and I, it was very interesting because I was threatening them in regards to, you can throw me out, but I had a marker at the time for like $250,000. And so we negotiated the marker down to make me happy and then make them happy as well. Because I was barred for 1 year. That was the agreement we made. But I did throw at them some possible lawsuits that could come their way.
That were overdue.
Yeah.
Did end up coming their way.
Yeah. So, because, some of the girls were very pressured in the wrong manner. And I wasn't a part of that, of course. And, I just didn't feel that was right. But
and you ended up defending them. So thank you. Again, another testament to your story in Vegas.
Well, thank you.
So like I mentioned, as we were preparing for today, I think the majority of my audience in these early phases of the podcast will be females. So we're not all familiar with like gaming and bookmaking. So explain what it was that your business was and why it was a problem.
Sure. Of course. So obviously there's a sports books in Las Vegas and throughout the country now, FanDuel, DraftKings. And what the sports book does is facilitate obviously a wager between a person and them. And their job is to take the bet at whatever the stated line is, if it's a boxing match or a football game, whatever. And then of course, if the person wins, then they pay them. If they lose, then they've already received the money because it's been put up front. And in Las Vegas, the sports books are all, in every casino. Now, throughout the country, you could bet on your phone through DraftKings, FanDuel, et cetera. And in my state, in California, it's still illegal. 11 states still ban sports gambling. So what I was doing was taking sports. I had an office in Costa Rica, and basically I had customers throughout the country, and they would go onto my web portal and or call the 800 number, usually the web portal. They would put in sports bets. And then every week we would settle their balances because it was all credit based. I would give credit to each person depending on what they're comfortable with. And then we would settle, up or down accordingly every week throughout the country. And I had about 850 active customers when I was rated by the feds, about 1,200 total customers. And they were anywhere from California to Alaska to, I had some in Hong Kong and a few in Australia. So it was a pretty big operation. And I think the problem for me really, and the reason I was rated by the feds, by the way, was the second time, was because of what happened in Las Vegas as far as it came through Las Vegas and it led to me, which that case is still ongoing. Actually, I chose to advance my sentencing and which is why I'm going to prison in 17 days from today. But that's what a bookmaker is, or bookie as a lot of people here. And that's exactly what my operation was, my job.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you were a pretty extensive business. You had 850 active customers at the end of your time. So tell me about the pros and the unique stressors that came from your lifestyle and your business during that time.
Well, I say it's self-induced. My stress levels were very high because, as you know, I was a very, very big gambler as well. So not only was I gambling every day by taking the bets, but I was gambling every day by making the bets, which is unusual. As they say, you get high off your own supply. I was very guilty of that. I've had the gambling addiction since I was probably 16 years old. So it just developed and got bigger and bigger. The more money I made, the more I gambled. And of course, the more dopamine rush that came along with that. That being said, gambling throughout all of the country, I went with you to the Bahamas. I started going to Panama. I went to Dominican Republic, Monte Carlo, London. We were taking jets almost everywhere because my appetite for gambling, as it grew, I wanted to explore the world at the same time because I really tried to make memories and moments out of these trips to casinos.
Yeah.
And I did. I mean, we had the most amazing times. But to answer your question, there's a lot of stressful, dark moments that people don't see, where I lost $2 or $3 million, come home, and then my package of, I call it my package, my business, my players may have won $1 million, and I have to find a way to make sure that I cover all that. And sometimes with the ebbs and flows of, my personal gambling and my business, there'd be moments where I really wasn't liquid, and I'd have to borrow money from friends or do whatever it took to make sure that my customers were paid. But I knew that maybe the next week I can make $3 or $4 million back by either going to the casinos or maybe with my business. And that's a very stressful lifestyle because it could crash at any time. And I've had moments of that, which I talk about in my book, Recalibrate, where, in fact, I had a package of guys that won 5.7 million off me when I was 26 years old. And that was a lot of money to me at the time. That's a lot of money to anyone, really. But but at the time, it was even bigger than it is for me today because, taking money out of my house, borrowing money, doing whatever I could, I had to pay my customers, because as a bookie or bookmaker, the number one thing you have is your reputation, and you have to pay your customers no matter how broke you become or where you stand, because they'll stop betting. And it's just like turning off the lights of an operation. So I always had to feed that funnel first, and then, of course, pay my bills and take care of my children. And then anything above that, then I would start gambling myself, of course, or, figure it out and then use credited casinos to gamble, or even use them as a hub for banking, which is why the money laundering aspect of the KYC, which ended up occurring because I was using, the casinos to funnel and facilitate a lot of my cash.
Yeah. I want to go a little bit into the personal aspect of your business in just a moment. But now that we've brought up this is a potential addiction, and we know that addictive minds are usually transferred from one area to another, you've made a really drastic change in your life. And we're really going to go into that about how you've pivoted from accepting responsibility for your wrongdoing and going into massive social, like, self-promotion to start getting your story out. Do you think that your addictive behavior has transferred into any other area?
Oh, definitely. No question.
How
um,
so?
well, my addictive personality slash all in personality, I say that because if you channel your addiction or your passion, which in my case, I'm a person that's never settled for second place. I mean, it's happened, but I'm always striving to be the best at whatever I did. Dating back to when I was a Orange County Register paperboy, I sold the Orange County Register. I was number one in the county. And then I was a commodity trader. I was number one in the world retail broker for 11 years. So I broke every record doing that as far as commissions and equity and raising money. But it's just a passion I've always had. I'm really competitive. So channeling that to something else is exactly what I've done. Obviously, I don't gamble anymore. I'm not allowed to gamble. In fact, if I do gamble, I'll go to prison earlier than I already am. And I've channeled that to, like, it's actually a strange moment for me. The minute the feds raided my home, October 5th of 2023, we had 29 federal agents come in with a dog, and watching my wife come out handcuffs crying and then holding my 2-year-old son was a moment of clarity for me. Like, I had to pivot. I had to recalibrate, which is exactly why I named my book Recalibrate. And that moment was the best and worst day of my life. Obviously, the worst is easy to describe. The best is it was time for change. My wife was really getting tired of the Vegas lifestyle, the trips. I, of course, wasn't. I love to gamble. I love to go there. I could have lived there. I could have been there every day of my life because, you're feeding the dopamine rush that I enjoy the most.
Yeah.
And I describe gambling, sadly, as the best sex of your life times 10, or the best euphoric. I've never done drugs, so I can't, articulate that feeling, but I think it's very similar to being on maybe the highest cocaine or Molly or whatever, for me at least. And that euphoric feeling is always a chase that you're trying to, run after. But that being said, I transitioned that to my new world, and going back to my vision. The day that I was raided, I had to, figure out, like, calm the nerves and figure out how I'm going to handle the situation. And the very next day is when I decided I need to write a book, and I started actually going right into my new world, which is where I'm at today. And my vision, nobody really understood it, especially my wife, because I'm not a social media person. I've never even had social media. In fact, I had a Facebook for like maybe 200, 300 of my family members I'd post a picture here and there of my family. That was it. And it was private and, whatever. So I opened the floodgates about a year later after my case started developing. I started writing this book, and my attorneys kept saying, you need to be quiet. Don't talk to media.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was difficult, right? And they were trying to muzzle a guy who was not a quiet person. and who also wanted to, defend myself really, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Channel 4, Channel 7, every news channel, ESPN, you name it. And all they're telling people is I'm a predatory guy, and
Mm-hmm.
I look like, of course, they sensationalize everything. So you look really bad, which, I committed a crime. I still argue that the crime was, in my opinion, a little bit ridiculous as far as
Mm-hmm.
me go to prison for that. But I knew what I was doing and I'm accountable for that. I own that and I'm okay with that. But I was taking sports bets. I wasn't feeding fentanyl to children in parks. And
Yeah.
and again, that sounds very deflecting, but I am accountable for my actions. I just feel that putting a father of five in prison for a crime that could be, I could be doing community service. I could be actually helping people with addiction. I can go, like,
Yeah.
if you want me to pay back the community and the world, let me impact people so they don't end up in the same shoes. As
Yeah.
far as money's concerned, I've already paid back my restitution. So I've already done all the penalties and fines and for taxes, everything. But
I'm curious how much that was, because I would imagine.
yeah, it was just under 1.7 million.
Wow.
But then for my 2023 return and 24, I owe $9.7 million. Yeah, so they're getting their cut and more. They charged me $1.25 million fine and then another $1 million penalty fine. So, I've definitely been punished financially, which is fine. I deserve that. I own
Mm-hmm.
that. I just don't feel that being a father is really helping my 14-year-old daughter or my four-year-old boy or the community for that matter. But that being said, in 17 days, I'll be walking into a federal prison and I'll deal with that. But back to my vision, no one, in fact, my wife was like, what are you doing? As I started doing selfies, I call it selfies. I would just grab my phone and telling my
Yeah.
story. She was very uncomfortable with that because she's very private. And, this was a new version of her husband that she's never seen.
Yeah.
And I really just wanted the world, or at that time I had no followers, but I wanted people to start seeing that, I have a voice too, and I'm a human being, and I'm a good father. I've made mistakes, of course, but I'm a good person, and I've really been loyal to everybody in my life, and I've always
Mm-hmm.
treated people with respect. And I needed people to see at least that side of me. I'm not perfect. I'm definitely not an angel. And I've taken advantage of people as far as my business. I mean, I was facilitating to people who had gambling problems too. I don't hide from that. But that being
Which is
said,
the nature of the business and
yeah,
something that Las Vegas also does.
of course,
Any
and
gambling does.
that's how they survive, and that's it. That's okay, because at the end of the day, the person that gambles has to look in the mirror. If they choose to give their money away and they have a problem, they need to get help, just like I did.
Mm.
So I don't. Of course, we don't want to feed those problems and help people become worse of a person. But at the end of the day, we all have choices. We can go to a bar and get wasted every day. We could do drugs. There's so many options to really hurt yourself or feed your addictions, and the person needs to get help. But my vision at that time was, you know what, I'm going to, because everyone's told me, you need to write a book. You have a movie. Your life's crazy.
Yeah, literally.
And to me, I was like, this is what I do every day. It's like brushing my teeth. It wasn't crazy. And then when you take me out of the storm, which finally happened, I
Yeah.
look back and I was like, wow, in 50 years, I'm 50 now, you have done some wild things, good and bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I put it all in a book. And my book I'm very proud of it. It's a great legacy for my kids to read. I put the dark sides of me in there. It's not all
You did.
positive.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not all glorified. Of course, I talk about the fun stuff, but I do talk about the down moments and the stress and all the things I put myself through, which, it's easy to watch a guy on a private jet and think, oh, the life's perfect, but we all know nobody's life is perfect. And there's always some dark sides to everybody. And I tried to show that because I think that's important that people realize, it's not all these successful people that you think are so happy or so successful are not quite what you think,
100%. It's genuinely why I got in the work that I do. When I met you again with Tony, I was going to grad school to become a therapist for the first time. And everybody else in my cohort was going to help the homeless or veterans or, postpartum mothers. And I was surrounded by all of these really wealthy people with real life issues that they're not going to just go to an agency therapist on insurance and talk about these problems with, because it's completely unrelatable. And I
Right.
had seen a completely different side of just industry and the wealthy, I guess, and realized, very successful people need a very different level of care. They're not going to do well with validating for hours and hours. Like, you want challenges and to a timeline. Like, you don't want to spend the next 10 years being in therapy to talk about your past. you want to be focused on your future and goal oriented, et cetera. And so really the time that I was, hanging out with you and a lot of the other guys that were Tony's clients really molded the business that I ended up creating.
That's great.
But
Good for
I,
you.
thank you.
I'm proud of. I've watched you, obviously, develop into the human you are today, and mostly through social media, of course, which is why it's so powerful because
Yeah.
you can really see a lot about a person. But I'm really happy with what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you highlighted that you were able to take the same addictive energy and put it into good, because I watched that real time when like we got the friend request from Mathew Bowyer. We were like, what is happening? And obviously, like, you were all over the news at the time, and so we had the same response, like, I don't know how much he should be saying, and you were there every day. Like, I've never seen anybody more avidly on social media, every single like, every single post, every single day. And I asked you, I was like, is somebody running this? And you're like, no, it's
Yeah,
just me. And
I
it's just
remember.
a redirection of energy. And that's such a testament to not all of our weaknesses have to be perceived as weaknesses. Like you said, that go-getter attitude, that strive to be the best at all the time led down a negative path, but you were able to turn that around. And I think that so many of my audience aspires to write a book one day, and you knocked it out in how long? Like, I think this was a ridiculously short period of time from sitting down to publication and promotion that you're also constantly active in. And so I really appreciate you highlighting that.
I think it's funny you pointed that out. My wife is like, sometimes she's like, God, do you ever take a break from anything? Because like last week we flew to Tampa and then Boca Raton and then New York. And I did 7 podcasts. I was on Forbes magazine, Good Day New York, Craig Carton show, and then like, I don't sleep much, to be honest. I sleep like 4 hours a day, if that. And, my mind is always racing because, number one, I'm going to prison in 17 days. I have a father of 5, and it's the biggest guilt and shame I'll ever, probably die with. The fact that I won't be able to provide and protect for my family. And that's my biggest obligation as a father and a husband. So, I have to live with that. But all I can do is make it better. I can't control the situation I'm in any more than I already have. But that's something that drives me every day because I need to prove to my wife, prove to my children that, yes, this is a tough moment for all of us. Yes, it's adversity. Yes, it's going to be a tough pill to swallow. It already is. But guess what? We'll get through it as a family, as a team. We all have each other's back. And, the fact that I face my fear and run into the fire is what I want my kids to learn from, because most people in this position, they just bury their head in the sand. They start drinking, then maybe they resort to drugs, or they're depressed and they lose, they gain weight. They just don't exercise.
Many of them won't survive the level of
that too.
scrutiny and negativity that you have. I don't think most people or many people would survive it. And to come out on the other end the way that you have is the exact reason that I'm so grateful that you're taking this time, 17 days before reporting to your prison sentence, because I think it's such a testament to resilience and the mindset that I want my audience to experience.
I appreciate it. Not to sound egotistical, I do have a big ego, as you know, but I definitely have.
The best people do.
Well, I definitely have a strong mindset. There's no question about that. Nobody can crack me or break me. And I used to tell my wife, I will not let this break me, and I will not let the government crack me and break me. Through this, there's 2 years that's been going on. And believe me, there's been some serious dark moments. I used to make $1 million, $1.5 million a month, and I make 0 now. And then I have this lifestyle. I just got my daughter through Oregon University. I was almost 300 grand between the, the whole process of room and board and everything. And then I've successfully kept my kids in private schools. I've really maintained our lifestyle as best I could. Of course, I got rid of my Ferrari or Rolls Royce and all that crap, but none of that matters. I'll get those things again. Yeah. But I am materialistic.
Also a huge mindset. I will get those things again.
Yeah.
I'm doing it very differently, right?
It's funny you say that. I'm really glad you said it, because on my Instagram, I talk about those things and then people call me materialistic. I'm like, well, yeah, I am. I like nice shit. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I have goals, and some of them are material, of course, but I say that, but then people focus on that. The real goals that I have are being the best father and husband first and foremost. And I'm doing that every day. And then, of course, just being a better person and making an impact. Actually, the biggest thing that I've learned out of my social media and this whole process is that for the first time in my life, I wake up every day, I look in the mirror, and I've always been very comfortable with what I saw, but I'm the most comfortable today than ever. And that's really Yeah, because I'm making an impact on people. If I could
Mhm.
tell you how many, I don't get paid $1 for my social media, not yet. I think I will eventually, but I help so many people that have problems, addiction, even
Mhm.
just marital problems. It's weird. I've become a therapist,
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah.
believe it or not, not on purpose, but
Yeah.
they see my strength and what I, try to represent. And then they'll reach out to me on DMs and say, hey, man, you probably won't respond to this, but da da da. And I help everybody. I respond to everything
Yeah.
I do.
You do. That's what I said, like immediately too. Like you are always there.
I am. I'm on it all the time. My phone is my hub because I truly have taken my business skills and now I've diverted it to my new
Mhm.
plan, which is,
Yeah.
of course, writing my book, which first and foremost, Recalibrate. There it is.
There you go.
But I wrote the book because I wanted to have, I call it a business card because it's
Yeah.
really what it is, right? So I don't make much money on a book. I never planned on making a lot of money, but it is getting me to the next level of what I'm going to be doing, which is public speaking, which I'm doing my first public speaking tomorrow.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah,
Where?
it's in Laverne, California. It's a trucking sales company that hired me to come in and speak to their sales staff and customer
Ama-
service. So
Amazing. I
it's
think that
very
that's
exciting.
definitely your next projection. When you were talking about helping with addictions, I think that that's another amazing path for you.
Yeah,
And I was saying earlier, like we were all watching you start become very public. And I think that all of us were like, well, we don't want to incriminate him or, like nobody knows what to say or do in those situations.
of course.
And at the time, I was also working with a lawyer who just himself was going through a personal crisis. And he was like, people don't recognize the value of getting the public's attention, either positively or negatively. And so watching you, I was like, oh, he's swaying the public perception, the public opinion. And I
Right.
do think that that was probably helpful in your case. I mean, I wasn't on the inside of the case, but I do think that that's something that was so ballsy to have done that had to have helped you in the long run is swaying public opinion and not being afraid to do that.
It's funny you say that. My attorney was not happy with me
I'm sure.
at
I
all.
know.
Yeah, at all. In fact, we argued about it, and I told her, I said, Diane, this is my life. It's my case, and yes, you are my attorney, and your job is to protect me and keep me out of prison, and I get all of that. But I also have 5 kids to feed when I walk out of prison, and I'm building a base and a foundation of a business and something I feel very passionate about, impacting people. And if it costs me another year in prison, of course I don't want that.
Yeah.
But I would rather have a voice and be who I am. And I believed in myself. And to be honest, she just told me yesterday, my wife and I took her to lunch, and she told me yesterday that she thanked me and said that my case and me as her client has developed more confidence in her and her own business than she's ever received in her life. And it was like, I almost wanted to cry. It was really cool
Yeah.
because she was like, you could tell that she has this new, now she's on social media. Now
Mhm.
she was just on the soft white underbelly. Like, this is
Oh,
stuff
wow.
she would
Yeah.
never do this. So she just
Yeah.
did it. And
Yeah.
of course, she used my connections to do it. And she's like, I got to tell you, because the judge actually gave me a little bit of a kudo bar and said, hey, man, I actually respect what you've done. And
Yeah.
I was really impressed because it could have went the other way. They could have, looked at me as glorifying my lifestyle, which I did in some of my social media and I still do, because, you can't just talk about the good and the bad. You can't just talk about the bad. You got to talk about both.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that. I really did. I tried to show, yeah, there's moments that were the best memories of my life were in casinos or on
Yeah.
trips. And
Yeah.
that's a fact. But I've had some of my darkest moments because of those trips or because of what I was doing to get to those trips, right?
Yeah.
So I showed that. And if people want to, judge me for that, then that's okay. When you're on social media, you're going to get judged and hate and all that stuff anyway. And I get plenty.
I want to come back to that, but you keep talking about your family, and I think that that's such an important thing for us to touch on is that you genuinely are at your core a family man. You mentioned in Recalibrate that you've been married 3 times, and Nicole is your current wife and the mother of your 5th child. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, what has been different in this marriage versus past relationships, and how did she respond to your career?
Great question. She will not like this answer. So the truth is, I'm not disappointed or saddened, or I'm not going to use the right word about any of my relationships. They
Mhm.
all have propelled me to being a better person and great moments in my life. My first wife, Monica, I was with when I was 15 years old, and we had a child at 19. I did what I thought was right, which was to marry her, have more kids, and we were on this path. The problem was, as I was a young, kid when I met her, and really a young child still, even though I was, 18, 19, having a baby. So I didn't really know who I was. And our relationship was more of like we were like roommates, we were friends, and I married her because we had children, and I just thought
Mm-hmm.
that was the right move. And then we're still great friends to this day. In fact, her husband now and I own a jujitsu studio together. So
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's
yeah,
crazy. I knew you owned the jujitsu studio. I didn't know that connection there.
yeah. He's
Crazy.
they come over almost every Monday. We have dinner as a family, all of
Oh,
us.
I love that.
Yeah, they have a
So then you
daughter.
co-parent very well as well.
Yes, all with my other ex baby mama, Rachel, which I did not marry actually. I didn't marry her. We got
Oh,
engaged.
okay. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
but she was going through a really tough time in her life when we were together, and along with my gambling and chaos, it wasn't the best connection for us. But
Mm.
again, both relationships. I was with Monica for 15 years, married for 9, and then I was with Rachel for 9 years. And then those two relationships were fantastic for me. I got these beautiful 4 girls, 4 daughters. I have great relationships. And Rachel was just at my home 5 minutes ago, picking up
Oh,
my 14-year-old daughter
yeah.
and taking her to school. And we all get along great. We all go to dinner. We celebrate birthdays. We do everything as if we're all one big happy family because we are.
Yeah.
And that led me to being single at when I was with you actually in the Bahamas, and then transitioned to
We were trying to set him up. We were
you
trying
were
to set him
exactly.
up and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's right. But I was a little wild and I was definitely coming into my own and becoming finally an adult, I think, even though I was almost 40 years old. But I eventually met Nicole. And when I met Nicole, it was different. Like, I never thought I'd be married again. I definitely didn't think I'd have any more children. And I was just kind of like, I was very wealthy, making a lot of money and living this chaotic lifestyle. And I thought, she was 28 years old. I was 40. I'm like, I'm just going to have a little fun with this girl. It's definitely not going to go anywhere, anything serious. But what happened was she held out from even doing anything with me sexually. So she made it even harder. So she forced me to get to know her as opposed to just looking at how beautiful she was and being a typical male. And in that process, I just fell in love with her and every part of her. And she's like
Ladies, hang on, wait. Ladies, take note. Holding out. I held out too with Tony. It was a big shift. Holding out has a lot of power.
it's a lot of respect is built in that process. There's no question. But she just really showed me what kind of person she was. And she was 28, but she was like a 40-year-old, mature woman at 28 years old. And we just connected so much. So luckily for me, I courted her for a while and then we ended up getting married and then having a 4-year-old boy. He's now 4. And I just have the best wife on the planet. I mean, she is a unicorn. I can't speak highly enough about her. She's been by my side, been loyal through everything. She was there when I met her. She worked at a restaurant as a waitress and was building her Coco on the Go brand and really was just a worker and had all these like characteristics that I just never saw in a woman. And when I courted her, she even was like, I couldn't get her to leave her shift at a waitress to come fly on a private jet to go to freaking Monte Carlo. I was like I said, yeah, you're gonna make like $200 today. Like, I'll give you the $200. She's like, no, I don't want your money. And long story short, we just really connected, and to the point now where our marriage is the best it's ever been. Going through this turmoil has just brought us even closer, which I think a lot of people, it tears them apart because it just they don't know how to handle it. And
Or they don't have the foundation. And
yeah,
I think that you guys were already building the foundation because you had unique stressors along the way. You had other baby mamas. I mean, these are all things that alone would crumble a marriage. The fact that you guys built your relationship with these stressors already in place created such a strong foundation, I think, for you.
oh, no doubt. I mean, having 4 kids with 2 baby mamas,
Yeah.
yeah, she accepted a lot. She
Yeah.
didn't bring any of that to the table. And she loves my kids as if they're their own. They have great relationships. And, I'm just blessed. I think because I treated my exes very, very good exiting the relationship, it really developed to where we all can, get along, amazingly.
Yeah.
I don't just mean financially. Of course, I take care of them, but I meant mentally. Like Rachel, for example, she battled a lot of different things. She battled bulimia and alcohol and all kinds of things. And she's got help. She's been sober like 6 years now.
Oh,
And
amazing.
yeah, I'm so proud of her. She's just an amazing woman, amazing mother. And when I was with her, I was going through those things with her, and it just made our relationship, chaotic. But
Yeah.
now she is just a really good mom, a really good person. The person I met, my wife now, Nicole, and her are great friends, and they get along great because, she's seen what kind of person she is and watched her overcome all this adversity in her own life. And so we're all just proud of her. But My
Yeah,
point is, we're all just a one big happy family. It really gets along great. And
I
it's
love that.
because we all just treat each other with respect.
I love that. And so many relationships can't do that. I think, again, that's such a testament to your mindset and that your value truly is family first. You mentioned Nicole's company, Coco on the Go, which is an athletic wear company. I'll also leave that in the notes of this show for you to check out. We're talking with her to potentially get her on here. You guys as a
Yes.
family are already going through a lot. So I wanted
Yeah.
to give her some time to get settled into your sentence before touching base with her. But you may have seen her on Real Housewives. I'm a massive fan of Real Housewives. And you mentioned that you guys were talking to Bravo in the Bahamas with Ryan and them. So after the sentence, will we be seeing you on the Real Housewives?
I hope not. That means that I'm desperate. They don't pay enough money for me to go through that hell, to be honest.
No.
Yeah,
The tea.
the T is they would have to give me a lot more than they're willing to offer to be, because that show to me, and listen, I'd watch it and I enjoy the tea as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that show is really dirty to me. And what I mean by that is all they want is, of course, miserable parts of people's lives to come
I
out.
agree. Yeah.
And if I'm desperate enough and I need the money, I would do it. I'm not going to say I wouldn't,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping that what I'm building, which is a completely different light than that, is much more about being positive and impacting people in a positive way. And I really want to get away. And again, if I have to, I'll do it. So I want to be clear. But
You're not saying no, Bravo.
no, because I got to feed my family and I got,
Yeah.
it would be strictly a money decision, but I really don't see that me going that direction. I want to be involved in something where I wake up every day and I feel really good. I look in the mirror. Every business I've been in before, for example, I was a commodity trader, right? And I did that for 11 years. And then, that business was kind of dirty in a sense. It was legal, but, for the clients I had to raise money from, I would promise them this, great career and making money in the markets. And I knew that most of these people really were going to lose, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the morality of the job, I think, ate at me. And that's why I went into bookmaking, ironically, which was illegal, because at least, even though I was also in a business where I was taking money from people, most of my clients enjoyed it. It was an entertainment, just like no different than a person that goes to a casino with $1,000 and they have a good time. And if they lose it, it's not the end of the world. Now, of course, there's the dark side of that where they go and they lose
Mm-hmm.
and lose too much money. But my point is, it's always been win lose for me and make money. Now I'm in a position where I get to do win win. And if I have an impact where I get paid to go help somebody make more money in their life and motivate them on their mindset or motivate them on goals and plans and how they get to be successful in their own life or get away from an addiction or, lose weight, exercise, whatever it is to really, because it's all in our mind. All of these things all come back to your mind. That's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I could teach
100%.
somebody that or help them with that and I get paid to do it, I mean, how much more powerful is that?
Yeah. I cannot agree with you more. Everything is mental. So you had mentioned that you went into ownership of a jujitsu studio and you do jujitsu, correct?
Right.
Keeping in line with your just mental health in general, because I attribute jujitsu as being one of the best practices of mindfulness that exists. And I also teach that the mind fundamentals are the core for keeping a strong, resilient mind, movement, intention, nourishment, deep connections, fresh air, unplugging, and learning. Aside from mindset, what are some of the best practices of self-care that you rely on now and or that you plan on taking with you into your prison time?
Well, some of the things I'm going to tell you I won't be able to take into prison time. But
Yeah, I'm sure.
for example, every morning I wake up, I do a 45 minute to an hour infrared sauna in my house.
Yeah.
And then I jump into my cold plunge for 7 minutes at 43 degrees. And then that's kind of my first challenge. The sauna is actually great. It's relaxing and,
Mm-hmm.
I get a little bit of like alone therapeutic time to think.
Yeah.
And then the cold plunge is more 7 minutes of hell that I just got through
You go
that.
7 minutes? That's
Yeah,
impressive.
well, it's because I listen to specific songs and then I do my Gary Brecka breath
Yeah.
work. And it takes about 7 minutes to do a 30-minute breath work.
Yeah.
And then I dunk and then I get out and then I say, okay, I just accomplished something kind of difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
To
it
start
starts,
the day, the rest of the day is easy.
yeah, you already won and then you feel
Yeah.
refreshed. And then depending on my day, I'll either go to the gym or I'll go to train in jujitsu. So those are like those resets that I try to do every day. Not every day, but 4 or 5 days a week. And then as far as eating, we have a very strict diet as far as my wife is really healthy. So we don't really eat bad things. I mean, even if we have any form of sugar, it's like cacao or
Hmm.
whatnot. So our meal plan is pretty clean, and I don't drink a lot. I do enjoy old fashioned. So I'll have like, especially if I'm stressed, I'll have a few of those, here and there, but I don't do much as far as bad things to my body.
Yep.
And then I clearly don't do drugs, and I'm drug tested anyway. And I don't gamble anymore. So those are the kind of the things I do to stay healthy and keep my mind strong. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I've always had a really strong mindset, regardless of,
Hmm.
those things are just help me continue down the path of good habits and structure. But I really think it's important that whoever's watching this has to understand that your mind is the most powerful muscle, period. And if you can strengthen your mind and start doing action of things that I just described, whatever it is in your own life, you will
Hmm.
actually attack things one by one much stronger. And you'll realize you'll start to build confidence in yourself to the point where you are doing things that you didn't think you were capable of.
Yeah.
And, I've sat in a prison cell in the Bahamas for a day and a half, not knowing where my wife was.
Yeah.
I have been through hell. I've been in situations that had a gun pulled on me. It's all in my book. I've had crazy moments where my mind has been tested drastically, and
Yeah.
I'm about to test it even more. I'm literally
Hmm.
walking into a federal prison away from 5 kids.
How
Yes,
long is your sentence?
it's a year.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I'll get home in 6 to 8 months because of good time. But nevertheless, I'm going to be sleeping with dudes in bunks. I'm going to be taking showers with dudes. I've
Yep.
had white glove service for the last 20 years. So
Yeah.
I've had butlers. I've had people that have catered to everything I do. We live in a $5 million home. I was driving Ferraris and Rolls Royces. I mean, to go and be having a job in a prison cleaning shower floors and
Hmm.
having to pay for a toothbrush because they don't provide these things to
Yeah.
your commissary, and having all these guys that I really don't want to spend time with that I'm going to be spending time with. These are all mindset issues that I'm dealing with right now. But guess what? I'm not poor me. I'm not a victim. I look in the mirror. It's time to go. I'll just deal with it. And every day I'm still working. I'm here doing this with you. And then I have another podcast at 9. And then, obviously I'll go to the gym. I'll take my kid to school. I'm still juggling being a dad and a family
Yeah.
time. But it's all mindset. You have to have your mind strong. And the stronger you build it, the better you are in life, period.
100%. And I think you mentioned confidence. You start building that confidence not by thinking about things, but by doing them. So
Right.
even the little things like committing to a 7-minute cold plunge, that's you telling yourself that you can do something. And little by little, those tiny habits create that kind of confidence to be like, I can withstand a 12-month prison sentence in a federal prison, which sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what I teach. It's all these small things add up and build the confidence for you to start doing amazing things.
It's a good point. The biggest struggle that we all deal with, especially today in today's society, and I'm very guilty of this, is we all want something now and fast, and the world moves so quickly. So, like, you can't go to the gym and lose 20 pounds by going to the gym for 5 days. You got to
Yeah.
go for months, and you got to eat clean. And there's so many little steps that resonate to that. Saving money. You don't make $1 million in a month. You might make 20,000 in a month, and you got to save a portion of that. It all takes time. You don't build a muscle just by lifting one weight. You have to go consistently. And
Mhm.
it's right. It's little actions that lead to big results. And it just takes time. And most people don't understand that until they do
Yeah.
it. And guess what? If you start to do it, you start to see it. And then you all of a sudden you realize, okay,
And you're
this
like,
works.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And we all struggle with that.
Yep, absolutely. So this is going to air when you're actually behind bars serving time. How will you be sustaining your brand without personal access to it? And what do you see as the best case scenario for your future when you get out?
Sustaining my brand is going to be tough. I have a gentleman that I've interviewed multiple times. I really am tight on money, so he wants a lot more money than I'm willing to pay him because of my situation. But we're finding a happy medium because he does understand the value of where my
Yeah.
brand is going, and I'm kind of obviously going to have him in for the long haul. But I hope that his vision is as good as mine, and it's hard. I don't think anybody will ever have the same vision of your own brand as you yourself.
For
But
sure.
I'm trying to get somebody who I think will, even if it's 70% of what it is, then that's okay. Because I've worked hard to build the following that I have. And, I feel like I call it the social media family. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
you would be shocked at some of the things that I've developed, not on purpose, but people offer me money, like
Hmm.
go set up a GoFundMe. I'm like, I would never do that. I don't have cancer, thank God.
Yeah.
I'm not in a position where, yeah, this is self-induced. I don't want anything for free. I got to work for it. And I'm so grateful though of some of these people are just so supportive. I mean, I've never met these people in my life, and you would think like I've known them for 30, 40 years, and it just shows the humility in the world. And there
Mm-hmm.
are some great people. Of course, there's tons of really mean, hateful people, which we could talk about when you're ready for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But truly, like the amount of love I've received from just random people has been uplifting to the point where I feel like I have to keep it going just for them alone. Like
Yeah.
I got to show them what I'm capable of. And, everything I'm building, they started filming my documentary. So we pitched that with Netflix and Apple last week. So I'm very excited.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. And then I have a feature film offer on the table right now with my attorneys. I got signed by WME, William Morris.
okay.
So
Wow.
I have an agency, and, public speaking will be something I really plan on doing. Probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
But my goal in all of this is to have a Wolf of Wall Street movie about my life.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
Actually, I'm thinking, do you know John Dorenbos?
I
He's a
do.
magician. Are you
Yeah,
friends with
yeah.
him already?
The Eagles. He used to play
Yes.
for the. Yes,
And
I
then he
met
does
him.
magic with
Uh huh.
AGT.
Yeah.
So we're friends with him as well. And he's one of the first people I ever talked to about public speaking. So a
Right.
great contact for your speaking career as well.
Sure.
That is not where I was going to go. Where I was going to go is you were talking about successfully creating your social media, which to me is shown by the community that you have and the fact that people truly are talking to you. I think so many business owners create social media just to have a landing page and
Mhm.
forget the social aspect of the social media where they show up as an actual person. And we're in an industry now where information is readily available. You can chat GPT anything and have as much information at your fingertips as possible. But showing up vulnerably is truly where people are being the most successful on getting reach within their brand because they are truly building relationships. As you
Right.
mentioned, though, that comes with a flip side of you're going to get the occasional, if not the frequent asshole.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that? Because I see you respond to everybody, whether they're nice or not. What is your policy on that and how do you do that?
I realize that even though it hurts, I can't sit here and act like, oh, it doesn't bother me. It does. But when the people make negative comments, it actually helps your algorithm. It
It
helps it
does.
grow, so you have to take the good with the bad. And some of them actually make good points. Like I'll even say, hey, touche, like you're right. Like I get made fun of so much about my beard, which is really funny, right? Because I dye my beard, right? I have gray hair. And if I leave on Just for Men too long and I go on an interview, oh my God, I get blasted. Like this guy has beard plugs from Turkey or what this, like, no, it's my actual beard.
Yeah.
But I'll reply, I'll say, that's really funny. But actually, I use Just for Men. And yeah, you're right. I left it
Oh,
on.
you gotta get a sponsorship.
Yeah, but I own it. I look at it. I'm like, yeah, I left it on too long. It looks too like fake, because
Yeah.
I'm 50-year-old man and I have zero gray hair in my beard. Like today, I didn't dye it. But my point is
Yeah.
that kind of stuff I laugh. But when they start saying like vicious things, like, my wife, I think she's the most attractive woman in the world, but she's very attractive. So I'll be banging your wife while you're in prison. I'll be raising your 4-year-old boy, like that kind of stuff. As an alpha male who knows that the court was watching my comments or
Yeah.
I had to be very bite my tongue because my response would be, much different than what I probably had said at that time.
Yeah.
Because I own a jujitsu studio and I would invite whoever that person is to come on over and we can talk about it in person and,
Yeah.
see what they want to
There
say then.
probably won't be a ton of talking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that stuff hurts because it's like, what does the person really gain by saying stuff like that? I mean, I understand they're hurting, they're making themselves feel better and they're miserable and they're in a basement in Oklahoma and, their life sucks and that's why they're saying these things. Because who in the world takes time to go on random people's Instagram and hate on people? I mean, that just tells a lot about your character.
I genuinely think so many of it is bots too. Like there's no way it can be a real person saying some of these things and they never stop replying. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have too much time on your hands.
Well, I can tell you, you're right. I've learned, obviously, I'll look at the follower or whoever, not follower, the person.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a no picture, no post.
Yeah.
So then I just reply, oh, thank you. Coming from a robot, that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And then it usually stops that. But there's a lot that are real and they're just
Mhm.
they just hate me, probably because my wife is beautiful and I live a life that they dreamed of and they've never done half of what I've done and, whatever. So I just I feed it back a little bit, but it does bother me. I mean, I hate to say that. I wish I could be honest and say, oh, it doesn't bother me. It does.
Yeah. You said a few things though that really stand out to me. One thing that stood out first is when you were being raided by the FBI that you had to calm your nervous system and start making decisions from there. Love that. But also the fact that you can take criticism and hear it and pivot, that's not a strength that many of us have, or a quality to hear something and instead of be defensive, be accepting of it and open to it.
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from? And
I have an ego, so I have to check it a lot, right? So I think what I try to tell myself is I can learn from everybody. I can learn from a homeless person. I can learn from a person who maybe, in my eyes, isn't half as intelligent as me, but maybe they bring something to the table that I'm not seeing. And then, of course, I'm always not the most intelligent guy in the room. I don't claim to be. I don't want to be. In fact, I want to have the person who is the most intelligent in the room be part of my team.
yeah.
And the minute you recognize that and you're willing to continue to always grow and evolve and learn, then you're already beating the system, because most people in general are defensive, that they know it all and they got it all figured out. And I'm not that guy. Even social media, I have people that were questioning me. I use that example because here I am, a guy for 48 years of my life. I've never made a post, didn't even know how to do a post. I had asked my daughter, how do I do a post?
Oh,
Literally,
take a moment.
I had to like get on there and like, how do I even open an Instagram account, And so then I had to learn just all the little details, and I learned it all myself. Like, there's so many little tricks of learning, but the only way to learn is to try and put yourself out there, right? And most people are scared. I don't know what people are afraid of. You have nothing to lose. I mean, what, someone makes fun of you? Well, they're going to anyway, and that's just life. But put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to take risk. I've always taken risk, and I've always been willing to listen and learn from others. I don't care who they are. Even if I don't like the person or I don't agree with them, I can at least hear them out. I mean, maybe there's something that they say that I learn from or I can gain from. Or, at the end of the day, what's the worst case? I just listen to them for a few minutes and then I just tone it out. Okay.
Leave it be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm always trying to evolve and grow and be better.
I think we need so much of that in our political climate today.
Yeah.
A lot more of trying to find what we can take from others. I want to wrap this up with, you have been facing the highest degree of negativity probably in your life, right? Your risk has ended in the worst case scenario. And a lot of people, when somebody is going through something difficult, don't know how to respond. So who in your friend group responded really well, and what did they do?
I'll be honest with you. I lost less friends than I ever thought I would, actually. Truly. I did lose some and definitely was weeding out, the real ones. But I got to be honest. I think because I think I'm a really good person. I think I'm really good at judging people. I brought really good people into my life. So the ones who have been by my side has been 80% of my people that are still my friends to this day. And in fact, it's to the point, I'm not going to lie to you, Nicole and I are like, man, we're getting too much pressure of people trying to be our friend, not be our friend. They are our friends, but like spend time with us. Hey, can we come by and bring you dinner? We want to see you before you go in. People are all reaching out. I'll be here for your wife if you need anything. If you're like, she's a woman with, obviously 5 kids.
Yeah.
And well, 2 of my kids are grown adults, they're gone, but we have 3 of them still here. And, they're offering to come take the trash out or come get the mail or do, sweet things. But it's so much, it's flattering, but it's so much that we're like, no, we're okay. We got to cover. I'm not dying. I'm going to prison for a year. But it's so sweet and so endearing. To answer your question, I swear I have a group I could give you a list of people that have really been there, and only a few that I have been disappointed with.
Yeah, I didn't mean like a specific person, but like, what are people doing to show up? Because I think that the biggest typical response is to freeze in moments like this and not know how to offer condolences or offer help. Have you noticed that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Some people, the ones that are more distant, are just scared. Number one, because my phone is being monitored by the federal government, and they don't want any problems of their own to lead to that, which I respect and understand. So a lot of people will say, hey, I'll meet you for coffee in person. We'll talk in person. They're not even doing anything wrong. They're just scared of the federal government. And believe me, I understand why, because it's not a case you want to have. So I would say more of that. But most people are just reaching out and say, I don't know what to offer you, but I'm your friend. And if there's something I can do, let me do it. And I'm like, okay, great. And, I'm not the type of person that asks for much anyway, but it's just that one little kind comment means a lot, right? Because it just shows you that if I did need something, I have so many people to call. And so does Nicole. And it's been really like just having that support and having these people, again, from social media all the way to my close niche of people, has been amazing. In fact, my courtrooms were full to the point where they had to open multiple courtrooms. I had over 250 people showed up in my court hearing.
Wow.
Yeah, the judge has never seen that in his whole life.
Yeah. That also, I'm sure, played a part in the ruling. That's what I'm
I,
saying, that public opinion, there's
Mhm.
something for that, you know?
Especially now,
Hmm.
I think if somebody could listen to this and just understand that we all have a voice and we all have a story, and everybody thinks that their life is like not, that big of a story or don't have that much of a voice, and it's really inaccurate. I don't care who you are. I'm going to give you a great example. You could go right now on social media and you could have one follower and you could put out a reel or whatever, a message, and you could have 10 million, 20 million people view that.
Hmm.
It's possible.
Yep.
Obviously has to be something that resonates in the algorithms, and there has to be a reason to it, but you could all of a sudden in one reel change your life. And it doesn't mean you're going to get paid millions of dollars, but it could all of a sudden turn into a brand, or you
Yep.
could all of a sudden have this following that you now have a niche that everybody is resonating with, whether it's therapy or whatever following wants to be. And that is so powerful. Whereas you have a guy who, let's take Alex Hormozy or Gary Vee,
Hmm.
who they're on social media every day. They post 100 times a day. They spend millions of dollars doing all these things. And yet your one view, one reel could actually get more views than them.
Yeah.
And they have a millions and millions of followers.
Yep.
But that's the power of it. So back to my message, it doesn't have to be social media. Everyone has a voice and you have an opportunity to use it. Always just be yourself and don't be afraid to take action.
And I love that you trusted your intuition even against everybody else's recommendation. That's such a big, powerful thing for business owners, I think, is learning to hear yourself and let that overpower the noise for everybody else.
Well, back to what you said earlier, if you're authentic and you are who you are,
Hmm.
it shows up.
Yeah.
So if you believe in yourself and you believe in your voice and you believe in what you're saying, then why not just do it and own it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is so good. I cannot wait for this to go. Like I said, you will be serving your time when this airs, but I'm very excited for my audience to become more aware of you and the amazing mindset tidbits that you've left today and just the resilience that you have going into this next phase of your life. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we cover or share any interesting stories or anything?
No, you were fantastic. I have so many stories. We'd be on here for 10 days. But my goal and my hope is that somebody watching this really gets something out of it for their own life. And, they could follow me on at MathewBowyer.com. My website will continue to show all the things I'm doing and hope to inspire people. Of course, my book, Recalibrate, is out on Amazon, which they could purchase. And I think anyone, whether you gamble or don't, doesn't matter. They can
Mhm.
get something out of that. And
It's
my,
really good storytelling. I agree.
uh,
It's not necessarily like just a book for you. It's really great storytelling through it too. That would be interesting for everybody.
But my mind right now, Lindsay, is the strongest it's ever been. And, I'm walking into prison with my head high, and I'll learn from prison. I'll learn from the people in
Yeah.
prison. I'll learn from a prison guard. I'll learn from a person that, I'll be honest, there's going to be pedophiles in there. I'm disgusted by those
Mhm.
people, but like, I won't learn from that. I'll be steer clear of those people, but I'll learn from every, scenario, and I'll come out bigger, stronger. And I'm very excited. I know that at 50 years old, I will make more money in the next 10 years than I've made in my entire life. And
I
there's no
love
doubt
that.
about it. Zero
Yeah.
chance. Don't bet against me.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Great work. Thank you so much for being here today, and we will chat soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. It truly means the world that you're here and part of this new community. And since it's my birthday week and the official launch of the Mind Performance Pod, I wanted to celebrate you by giving back. I'm gifting a few of my favorite tools to help you perform better, including private coaching inside the Mind Performance Accelerator, 6 months of access to the Rewire Mastermind, and some Mind Master planners. All you've got to do is leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts, screenshot it, and tag me on Instagram at Mind Performance Pod to enter. It's my way of saying thank you for supporting this new adventure and for doing the work to rewire your own mind.